Yeah, so, I mean, I can talk a little bit looser about this because Beth Silverman, the prosecutor in the case, actually said this on the public record. I was a witness to the grand jury on 2 separate occasions. I have to throw this in there. Beth and I don't get along. She does not want me investigating the case. She did not like that before anything was moving in this case that we put out things like the burn cage was at the house, a chainsaw.
He sat feet from the man he believes killed her for months. And then, in the middle of a live hearing, the prosecutor spun around and pointed straight at him. I need you to sit with that for a second, because what happened next in that courtroom is honestly one of the stranger things I've seen come out of this case. His name is Steve Fischer. He's a private investigator, and he's been on the David Anthony Burke case from the very beginning, long before most of America had heard the name Celeste Rivas Hernandez. He was in that courtroom for the preliminary hearing, and then, partway through, he was asked to leave. Here's the part nobody's really explained yet. Why? So let's back up. This is the case everyone's been following. 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Her dismembered remains found in a Tesla months after she vanished. David Burke, the singer known as D-Forved, now held to answer on murder, mutilation, and continuous sexual abuse of a minor.
The charging levels.
I hear you. And again, let me just put this out there because it's important. He has not been found guilty of anything. He is innocent unless proven guilty. This is just the next stage.
He's presumed innocent unless proven guilty. That matters, and I'm going to keep saying it, because what's coming next in this story gets ugly fast, and I don't want you to lose that thread. Fischer told us what it's actually like being in that room, sitting close enough to Burke week after week to watch him laugh with his attorneys, watch him sit still, watch him, in Fischer's words, seem like he's off on a different plane entirely. And then watch Celeste's parents walk in and sit through testimony no parent should ever have to hear. That's not the part that got him removed, though. Here's where it gets interesting. Fischer says the prosecutor on this case, Beth Silverman, has wanted him off this investigation from the start. He'd flagged things publicly. A chainsaw, a burn cage, terabytes of surveillance footage from a house across the street that got overwritten before anyone thought to pull it. And when he was subpoenaed as a grand jury witness, he says he was told, incorrectly, according to him and the attorneys he consulted, that he could never speak about the case again. Not to the press, not even to his own client. Then, in the hallway outside the courtroom, a man introduced himself. Turned out to be the attorney for Celeste's family. A few pleasantries.
He said some very nice things. He thanked me for keeping the story in the news, and I asked how the family was doing. And at that point, Beth Silverman came storming, and I mean storming, down the hallway and physically grabbed him, pulled him away, and said, "You are not allowed to talk to him. That is illegal." And I was really confused, and there was a lot of reporters around that were very confused what happened. But I didn't...
Thank you for keeping the story alive.
That's it, according to Fischer.
And that's when, by his account, Silverman came storming down the hallway, grabbed the attorney, and told Fischer he wasn't allowed to speak to him at all.
And I was seated, and we were on the record already. And Beth Silverman said that she wanted to put something on the record, and she turned around and pointed to me and said, "He is not to be in this courtroom. He has broken grand jury secrecy laws. I'm having a warrant issued for his arrest."
The next day, on the record, she told the judge she wanted him barred from the courtroom entirely, accused him of violating grand jury secrecy, said she was having a warrant issued for his arrest. Now here's the detail that actually matters.
Or anything like that.
I guess her perspective, it's a big case and she doesn't want to taint it in any way. But this arrest warrant, though, this idea that you're a warrant out for your arrest, does anything materialize from that or not?
I don't know. She's saying that I failed to appear for this order to show cause hearing, which was on a handwritten note, had no case number.
There was no warrant. Fischer checked with the clerk's office himself. Nothing on any docket.
And was trying to talk to them. And the judge, I got to say, the judge was super professional. She said, "Listen, she can have you excluded because of the grand jury thing." She's like, "I can't get into grand jury issues." And I said, "Listen, Your Honor, I'm fine leaving. I'm completely fine."
The judge, by every account, handled it professionally. She excluded him from the room without ruling on whether any of it was true. And when the family's attorney stood up and confirmed, on the record that he was the one who'd approached Fischer, not the other way around, Silverman reportedly didn't correct herself. She just kept going. So why does any of this matter, beyond the drama of it? Because it raises a real question about what else isn't being said in that courtroom. And this is where I have to be honest with you about something that's been bothering me.
So first, let me be very clear. I think David did this. 100%. I believe that. I really do. I've been very vocal about that. However, there is a difference between him doing this and possibly being overcharged. To
Fischer
a point where
doesn't hide where he stands. He told us flatly he believes David Burke did this. He said so publicly for a long time. That's not a small thing to hear from the investigator closest to the case. But belief isn't proof, and even Fischer draws a hard line there. He's not saying the prosecution's case is weak. He's saying it might be overcharged, that there's a real difference between knowing someone did something and being able to prove every element of it to 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt. Take the murder weapon. There isn't one. The chainsaws recovered from Burke's home tested negative for blood. No knife, no confirmed instrument.
charged, to a point where can they prove that? I think that, let's talk about the special circumstances first. I think the luring, I don't see it myself. I think that she was willing to come to the house. I didn't see any desperate attempt by him to get her there at that moment, or I don't think he conned her, or, by saying, making her certain promises. I think that's going to be a tough one there. And even the premeditation, the mens rea of this whole thing is, I question because David comes out, he's playing virtual reality video games while she's on her way there. He's like, hey, I left the door open. He doesn't seem like a guy who's waiting, rehearsing, getting maths down or anything like that. And also we hear his parents were possibly in town. And in the past, they have stayed at that house. It makes you wonder who exactly was there at the time. But it could be tough on the premeditation side. I do think it opens a door for the defense to say, listen, he did love her. It was inappropriate, but he loved her, and they got there, and there was a heat of the moment battle. And to try and knock this down to second degree or something like that. I don't know if he intended from the time he sent her that Uber for this to happen. I 100% believe in my heart and know in my heart he did this, but I do hope that they have more to actually back up those first degree premeditated, death penalty case claims. Possible death penalty.
I think where they may rely is saying, okay, we can show that she showed up, and he texts her shortly after she allegedly arrives at that home. And so if there was this drawn out battle, he's going to think that quickly after a drawn out self-defense
Fischer
battle.
thinks the real one might be sitting somewhere near Lake Cachuma in Santa Barbara, dumped on one of Burke's unexplained late-night trips up there. But he can't prove that. Nobody can. Not yet. Take the special circumstances that make this a death penalty case. Lying in wait, murder for financial gain, murder of a witness. Fischer isn't convinced all three hold up. He points out Celeste was the one who pushed to meet that night, that there's no clear evidence Burke lured her with false promises, that the financial gain argument rests on a shaky read of what threatening someone's reputation actually means under the law. And here's a detail almost nobody's talked about. During closing arguments, the prosecution reportedly used a phrase, recipient witnesses, people with direct knowledge of what happened. Fischer thinks that phrase slipped out, and that it points to someone out there who knows more than what's been said in open court.
He didn't plan to kill her? Do you know who actually drove or used his devices? The 2 chainsaws found in his home tested negative for blood. No murder weapon. We don't have the actual murder weapon. There was a conversation if there's a missing chainsaw. Fake blood in the home? So I don't know the idea. All these items were purchased for what, a music shoot? But I thought the defense kind of raised some points there that I wonder is going to be pause for a jury. I give it to you on that charge. What do you think?
Listen, I do agree. I do think there's strong evidence on the mutilation. These things were ordered, but these were
Someone
known.
who hasn't testified yet. Who is that person? And why haven't we heard from them? What Fischer is confident about is the sexual abuse charge. Photos, text messages. A West Hollywood deputy who told Burke directly, that Celeste was a 13-year-old runaway. In his view, there's no version of a defense that survives that evidence intact. He thinks the defense's real strategy is somewhere else entirely, arguing Burke loved her, that whatever happened in that house wasn't planned, that this belongs in a lesser charge, not first-degree murder with special circumstances. Maybe that's right. Maybe it isn't. We don't know yet what the prosecution is holding back for trial, and by their own admission, they are holding something back. What we do know is that an investigator who spent longer on this case than almost anyone was pointed at, threatened with an arrest warrant that didn't exist, and walked out of that courtroom in front of everyone. Burke is due back in court August 31st for arraignment. A trial could follow within months, and somewhere between now and then, we may finally find out who those recipient witnesses actually are. So tell me, do you think the prosecutor was protecting her case or protecting something else? Drop your answer below, because I don't think this is the last we hear about it.